Cool. So today I would like to talk about GraphQL. Disclaimer, I have never used it. It is just a one-day preparation that I have done on this. So take it with a grain of salt. So everything starts when you are grumpy, right? So I was grumpy one day and I started ranting about GraphQL. But then I realized that I did that once and then I have been proven wrong with React. So I should probably have a look at this. And then I started looking into it. So what GraphQL is essentially is that it is a query language for your APIs, but it has some unique characteristics. One of them is that it is strongly typed. So essentially that's what it is. It's made by Facebook. They have used this internally for a long time, but it has been open source as a spec for around 2 years now with a reference implementation in JavaScript. So what problem does it address is basically what makes it unique, I think. So it makes your API as a declarative, it exposes it in a declarative way. So your client can ask what it wants to get from your API and then get exactly that if your server is able to process that. And the other one is that it is compositional. Meaning that when you start building your API in a REST, by honoring the REST spec, you have lots of resource URLs that you are basically sending requests to get your home page rendered basically. In GraphQL, you can send one request and then get everything you need on your home page, for example. The other one is that it is strongly typed. It is strongly typed in a way that inside your server you define your schema, and then you can use it inside your server to define, understand how you are going to be exposing your data. It also does that, validation in the server side as well, but it also has unique characteristics on the client side as well, so you can get things. Does this sound familiar to you from somewhere else? No one's saying visible. Anyway, okay. So it's basically like how technology is evolving, right? So someone goes and invents a technology, and then some new people join and say that, man, this is screwed up. They invent another one, and then they get bored, they get tired, and then someone new joins and then reinvents the first thing. I think something happening here. Anyway, so as you can see, lots of big guys are using this. So you can trust it. Some characteristics, as I said, query has exactly the same shape as the result. This is the strongly typed thing. So this is how you define your query. On the left-hand side, this is what you are sending from your client, and this is what you are going to get from the server. And GraphQL operates on the set of types on your schema. It means that you define your schema, and it also has another thing called interception, which you can send what you have kind of request to the endpoint, and then it will give you all of that details, basically as a schema, just like the WSDL file, and you can just display that on the client side to get something fancy like IntelliSense or help things. Other is that GraphQL services can be written in a language. It is a spec, so you can use anything. There is a .NET implementation, there is a Go implementation, even an Elixir one. Nearly every platform has one, but the reference implementation is in JavaScript. As I said, it has the introspection system, which allows you to get information about your schema as well. So this is also very powerful. But we need to see some code, right? Otherwise, you are not going to believe me. So this is the hello world. There are a few things going on here. One of them is that you build your schema on the server. You say that, okay, this is my type, and this is what it has. It's very similar to TypeScript model type stuff. And then you define what that schema is going to match. This is probably tied to the JavaScript reference implementation here, but you get the idea. I think it's similar. So it's basically like everything you are being asked what you are going to be providing. And then on the client side, you are sending a request like this, defining what you want to get from there. And then once you execute that, you get it as a JSON payload from the response. Obviously, this is just like a console application, but you don't want to really do this inside the console. The obvious way is to do this through HTTP. So you can put this inside your server as well, which we will get. But first of all, let's have a look at some things. For example, let's add an age field there, and then make it an integer. And then now I will ask hello and age. But you see that inside while returning the age, I'm returning a string there rather than an integer. And it will throw an exception to me inside my console. But the weird thing here is that, notice at the bottom here, that we are returning the data and then the age is null. So it's basically what's happening there. So at the server level, this is actually throwing an exception, but it's basically returning this to the client. This is coming down to one of the better characteristics of GraphQL, which is that every type in GraphQL is nullable by default. It's very interesting, but it actually addresses the problem of fault tolerance on your server. So imagine that you are going to lots of different systems to shape your data for your client, and some of them might not be available. So you don't want to really block the whole request for that. But you can define types as non-nullable like this. When you do that, it will break on the server. So this is one of the characteristics. I'm not entirely sure it's a good or bad thing, but it actually addresses the problem of fault tolerance here. Exactly what I said, you want to write this inside the server, so this is how you do it in Node. And then the sending request is just, you send the request in post. You can do it in GET as well, through the questing, but the most common way of doing it is like you send a post request, and then you put your query inside the request body. And then you get exactly the same thing. One really good implementation of this is the GitHub's version 4 API is based on GraphQL. And they have done this in a very clever way, which is that they are not going to the database from the implementation. They are basically calling their existing REST APIs underneath, but they expose this to the clients now. It's very actually good when you try to play around with it. There is an explorer kind of stuff. You go there, you authenticate with your account, and you have access to everything from that point on, so you can play with it like that. So on the left-hand side, there's a query that I'm trying to get the pull requests, last 20 pull requests from open pull requests for .NET Core FX repository, and I'm also trying to get their assignees as well, first 50 assignees for that. So you see how you are building up that query, and then it's not that, you can add more stuff here as you're about to. You get this type of IntelliSense here, which tells you whatever you have, and you also get help here as well, because it's strongly typed from the client side. It can give you this type of things. And the thing that the GitHub is using is basically open source project called GraphQL. This is basically a React component. You can put it in your application or anywhere. It just needs to work with the introspection endpoint of your GraphQL API. It's very cool. But is this a silver bullet? That's the question, right? I think there are a few problems with this still. So for example, one of them is obvious one is HTTP caching. So network layer caching is one of the things that's good about HTTP, right? So you can layer the servers, and then there are some middleman is going to be in the middle. But as one of the common ways of doing this is the post request. So it gets very interesting that network layer caching is a bit harder now. So you can still do it in theory, but yeah, common things are not going to work for you. You can use this with GET requests, or it's also another pattern, but it's not that common once you have like lots of different, very complex queries. One other problem is basically, as you can see, like you are basically dumping the work to the client to say that ask me anything, and that has a cost. Like you need to you need to probably be very careful on the server side to how you are going to be executing those queries to your system. You probably need to do a lot of caching on systems like Redis or some other things. But yeah, it's basically you need to address this problem. You need to be careful about this. It's not like you can just map the queries to SQL Server or somewhere else. Authentication and authorization, they basically say you are on your own. Authentication is kind of easy. You can rely on HTTP way of doing it, but authorization gets a bit hard here. It's your business logic. You need to do something about it. But in your REST world, it was a little bit easier. But here you have very different things to worry about. It's a query language. It is, but they also have this thing called mutations. So you can mutate things. It's like RPC. Not good. I'm not sure how they came up with this, but it needs looking into. I don't want to be biased about it, but yeah. I think this is still good in a sense that, for example, there is this pattern called backends for frontends. So you can really expose this. You can still build your system as REST-based, HTTP-based APIs as in a resource model, but then you can introduce this layer on top of that for your clients to connect to. So backends for frontend is basically like create different backends for each of your frontend, but with GraphQL you can create one and then dump the work to your client. And yeah, that might be an interesting pattern. I think this is how GitHub is doing it right now. This is also very. I'm not sure if you are familiar with OData, but it's very familiar. So you get to ask the same questions like, how is this different? I think it's different in a way that the way that you are expressing the queries here is inside your post, with a post request inside the body. So you get to express it very nicely. In OData, it was based on REST. It was honoring all of the things that HTTP honors. It was a bit restrictive in that sense. I think it never took off because of that. But I think because of this nature, I think GraphQL feels a little bit more natural and intuitive. Further resources. There's a spec. It's very good. This is really cool. I think if you don't have this mindset in your mind to work with graphs, this is a very good reading. They have this client which is called Relay. Works really well with React. I haven't tried it, but it looks cool. More links. Yeah, I have done questions.
I don't have a clock on me, so.
Cool. I don't know much about this, so feel free to ask them. Cool. Thanks.
So next up we've got Mikhail talking about the STS extensions.